good. Shalom. First, I'd like to give all praise unto Yahweh Hashem Yahushai and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. And it's going to be a continuation of biblical world history, where we go through, the prophecies and the scriptures and the history, because it's linked hand in hand. Because prophecy becomes history, you know what I'm saying? Brother has already covered the Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, and now we're going to go into the next empire, which was prophesied and did come to pass, which is the Greek Empire. So we're going to jump straight back into Daniel's 7th chapter. I'm going to read from verse 6. It says, "After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it." Right? So that the 4 wings on that beast represent the 4 main generals that Alexander the Greek had. Okay?
Ptolemy, Seleucid. Ptolemy, Seleucid, and I always forget the other 2.
What'd you say? Ptolemy, Seleucid,
Lacenaeus and Cassander, yeah.
Right? Which at first they were wings on the beast, but then with the fall of Alexander, which we're gonna get, they became heads on that beast because the kingdom was split into 4, which is all historically documented. Now I also want to get quick precept. I believe in the book of Daniel it also goes into detail and it confirms Alexander as the leopard. I'm just gonna get that real quick. Yo, you know which chapter that's in? Alright, I'm gonna get it. Right, verse 8. So basically when you go into 8, this is another vision by the king Belshazzar. This vision goes into a little bit more detail into that beast we read about with the 4 wings and the 4 heads. This is Daniel's 8 and 4. It says, "And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand Sorry, that's the wrong one, it's like it. It doesn't go into the leopard. The ram is talking about the Persians. There we go. Right. The rough gold. Okay, yeah, I can start from 4 and reads on. "So I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward. The ram represented the Perso-Media Empire, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. What he did according to his will and became great." And that's talking about the Medo-Persian Empire.
Because they had expanded using their military. They had expanded way further than any empire, any of their predecessors. And pretty much all the earth was quiet before the Medo-Persian Empire. The Xerxes, all of that.
Xerxes, yeah. That's why in the movie, the Spartans standing up to them was considered madness. Hey, when the ambassador came, he just expected them guys to bow down because he didn't believe that they would want to wish hey, my man said the thousands of armies of the Persian Empire shall descend upon you. Our arrows will block out the sun. But they had a great military, man. In terms of men, the amount of men they had to call them. And they had the Persian immortals. It says, and I was considered, and behold, an he-goat came from the west. Now, west of Persia is Greece. Right? On the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. Right? That represented how swift the Greeks were in conquering the Persians and the Medes. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. That notable horn is talking about Alexander the so-called Great. Alright, which even to this day he's reverenced by the so-called white man, and in history as a great conqueror, which he was.
Yeah.
You know,
Only because the Lord allowed him to.
because it was prophecy.
It was prophecy.
Which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. So he put the Persians and the Medes into submission, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So all the gods of the Persians, which I believe they worship the fire gods, Zoroastrian, something like that. They worship fire, man. But who really delivered them up? It was Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore that he-goat waxed very great, and that's the Hellenistic period. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, meaning which we're gonna get into, Alexander the Freak. He died when a man was supposed to be at the peak of his powers, man.
About,
you know,
38.
All right, in his strength. What we call a grown-ass man. Yeah, a lot of people don't like how we talk, man. Yeah, man. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. Right? So that's talking about the 4 generals mentioned: Cassander, Lasamachus, Ptolemy, and Cassander. No, I said Cassander. Seleucus. Right? And he had other generals, because I believe Miletus was one of them, but those were the main generals, his friends, from since he was young.
Yeah, those were like family time, and then they divided the portion of his kingdom into 4, isn't it?
Right. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, which we're going to get into that when we get into the book of Maccabees, but I'm going to let the brother bring out the history going into the prophecies you just mentioned.
Right, so this is pretty much the history of Alexander.
By the way, throughout this whole time period, Judea was still in subjection. We were in subjection under the Persians. So as would happen, once the Persians were taken down, that new power had in subjection all the peoples that were underneath it. Now sometimes what would happen is, in the confusion of the change, you would have rebellions, and then they would have to go and, you know, let a man know, I'm the new Don around here. That happened.
That's what happens all the time, because basically the first campaigns of any leader, whether it was the Assyrian Empire or whatever, is basically to put down all of those rebellions and have those people in subjection to them. And if that's not done properly enough, then you'll have it to where, for instance, when the Medo-Persians were coming into power, they was coming when the Babylonians were coming, they were really supposed to have been silenced completely, but their predecessors completely silenced that rebellion, and then that's how they came out.
Because that confusion, when there's wars, it brings confusion. You know, certain diplomacies break down. So when you get the power seat now, you have to let them guys, send emissaries, let them guys know the tribute you was paying to them, now you pay to me. Yeah. Now some guys might doubt you, so you got to show them, look man, you know, I'm the new guy in town. Hey, it's the same on the street. You know, when a guy takes out another guy on the street, you might get little guys that want. He has to go and let them guys know that I'm running this shit now. You know what I'm saying? That's how it is.
Skirmish for power, isn't
I
it?
think it's skirmish for power. Anyway, brother, do what you gotta do.
So yeah, I'm just gonna quickly read through the history of Alexander the Great, so-called Great, and really to get into his history, you have to. It's all about getting into, because all of his life was pretty much military campaigns. Like the prophet said, that he was trying to silence all of those rebellions, and essentially he died early. So he said Alexander of Macedon, right, called the Great, on 356 BC, was the son of Philip, king of Macedon, and of Olympus, daughter of Ptolemaeus.
Can we stop there?
Yeah.
So he was an Edomite, specifically an Amalekite of Agag.
I didn't know that, but that's spiritual. Now you got to the Amalekites. They're pretty much the top guys now, aren't they?
Yeah, because they're the head tribe. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prove that. Because basically you had Haman was up in Persia, right? Which Haman was an Edomite, and the scriptures tells you that Haman, you know, when you go into the book of Esther, Haman was an Edomite.
Yeah.
Right? Just Salaki, I just need to find the point. There we go. So we got here from the book of Esther and Apocrypha. This is like some verses which are not found in the ordinary Bible. Meaning the copy of it wasn't found in the Hebrew or the Chaldean. So part of the 12th chapter on the 6th verse reads, howbeit Haman, which is Haman, the son of Amadeus, the Agagite, okay, which quickly I'm off.
Yes.
Quickly pull up Genesis 36:1.
Genesis 36:1.
Oh wait,
I got it. So,
Agag was one of the sons of Amalek.
I got it.
This is Genesis 36:1. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan, Adah, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite, and Holibamah, the daughter of Anar, the daughter of Zeboim, the Hivite, and Bashemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebajoth, and Adah bare to Esau Eliphaz, and Bashemath bare Reuel, and Aholibamah bare Jeush, and Jalim, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau which were born unto him in the land of Canaan. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the persons of his house and his cattle and his beasts and all his substance.
Right, if you jump down, it should tell you from his sons, one of the grands, Amalek. Yep, there you go.
12.
Yep, Amalek.
Verse 12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare Eliphaz Amalek.
So that's where you get the Edomite tribe of Amalek. Now the Agagites were of Amalek, the royal line of Amalek. Let's get 1 Samuel 15:1.
This is 1 Samuel 15:1. It reads, Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore, hearken thou unto the voice of the Lord, the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remembered that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have and spare them not.
Right, now if you jump down, the king of Amalek, jump verse 8, get straight to the point.
Verse 8, and he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword.
That's right. You know what I'm saying? Which what would have happened was some of them would have fled. That's where you get the rest of them. It says, howbeit, Haman, the son of Amadeus, the Agagite, who was in great honor with the king, sought to molest Mardochæus and his people because of the 2 eunuchs of the king. Right? So we know that Haman, who was in Persia, when you read in the book of Esther, he was an Edomite, but he specifically was an Agagite. Right? Now, when you go to the addition in Esther, verse 16, chapter 16, verse 10, it says, for a man, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received us. Meaning he was a sojourner in Persia. He was really from the land of Macedonia, and he was an Edomite. So you had Edomites that were living up in Macedonia, right? And that's where you get Alexander the Greek and his father. They were a bunch of Amalekites that were up there in Macedonia. All right? That's why it's good to say the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, man. That was the beginning, the fulfillment of that prophecy was with the Greeks, because that was when the wicked began to bear rule over the earth. The Edomites. That was their
wickedness
first
was increased, right?
Wait, we're going to get that.
It says, although Alexander is mentioned by name in canonical scriptures in the Dara, he's designated a transparent symbol. Right? In Maccabees, the 1st chapter and the 1st verse, he is expressly named as the overthrower of the Persian Empire and the founder of the Greeks. As with Frederick the Great, the career of Alexander would have been impossible had his father been other than he was. Other than Philip, it says, had been for years hostage in Thebes. While they had learned to appreciate the changes introduced into the military discipline and tactics by Epaminondas, it's partly no doubt from the firmly claimed to Heraclite descent, deepened by contacting Eliot in the earlier days in the Athenians like Iphicrates, and the personal influences of Epaminondas. Philip seems to have united to his admiration of the Greek tactics a tinge of Hellenistic culture and something like a reverence for Athens.
Which there was a lot of Jake in Athens. At that time you had a lot of Jake, you had Japhet there too, and you had Edomites, man. Okay.
It says the center of his culture. It says in military matters, his admiration led to introduce the Dapian discipline to the rough peasant levies of Macedon. And it says, and the Macedonian flanks proved the most formidable military weapon that they had ever been devised. Because we had the the Assyrians. When the Assyrians introduced their military tactics, they sort of introduced the first flanks maneuvers, but when the Greeks came into it, they took that to the next stage of war. Because their war formation was like nothing that anyone had ever seen before on Earth when they came to see.
That would have come from Jake.
Yeah. Oh yeah, from the Carthaginians, because the dudes down in Carthage, the new war. It says,
Spartans, they were Jakes.
And it says, and the veneer of Greek culture which had been taken on led him.
Which everything we're reading, all these things had to transpire for the prophecy to be fulfilled. See, we don't neglect that There's details in the world that have to happen, but you have to understand that all these things that are happening is all towards the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Heavenly Father. Every detail. That's what people don't understand. That's why they disrespect the Bible, man. They don't understand the Bible is life, man, and life is of the Bible. Okay, even down to the intercontinental ballistic missiles. No, the Bible doesn't have an instruction on how to build one, but it prophesied it was going to happen.
And things had to happen by way of time for that to be.
That's right. That's right.
So the veneer of Greek culture which had taken on led him, on the one hand, laying stress to his Hellenistic descent to claim admission to the Committee of Hellas, and on the other hand, to appoint Aristotle to be an author to his son.
Aristotle was a Jake, right? Okay, because you had Jakes up in that Greek culture back then. Go on.
By a combination of force and fraud, favored by circumstance, Philip got himself appointed generalissimo of the Hellenistic states and further induced them to proclaim war against the great king. In all this, he was preparing the way for his son, so soon to be his successor.
So he basically gathered the Greek city-states together as one in preparation, to fight against the Persians, man. All right? Yeah, and you bring out where you want.
It says his preparation for his life. It says he also prepared his son for his career. Alexander was partly, no doubt, from being the pupil of Aristotle, yet more imbued with Greek feelings and ideas than was the preparation of his father. He was early introduced into the cares of the government and practice of war. While Philip engaged in the siege of Byzantium, he sent his son to replace Antipater in the regency. During his occupancy of this post, Alexander, then only a youth of 16, had to undertake a campaign against Illyrians, probably a punitive expedition. 2 years later, a decisive battle of Coronea, which fixed the doom of the Greek autonomous city, and Alexander commanded the feudal cavalry of Macedon, the companions. He not only
and can I say something on that? You see, all this thing about being a teenager is all bullshit, man. Esau made that up. Adolescence is a fabrication of the 21st century. In the ancient world, once you became 12, you were a man. You were a young man, an inexperienced man, but you were a man nonetheless. So you were given more and more responsibility, man. The problem in this society is you got a period of time called adolescence, which they've now increased that up to 25 now. They're saying child psychology goes up to 25. So what they've done is they've stunted the growth of men and women, where you have this period in your life where you're neither a child or an adult, you're something in the middle, and you just have no responsibility, and you're just out there wasting time. You got a lot of these people that when they're 21, the level of knowledge that they're on and experience back in the ancient world, someone who was 16 had that. Okay, because everything was more keyed in. Right now, you go to uni, you're supposed to be learned. You ain't learned, man, because you're spending time fucking around and playing games, man. You're playing games. So a lot of these youth, 16, 15, they're already playing PlayStation more of the time, man. They're not really going out there and experiencing things and learning things and spending time with adults. In the West, people spend more time with their peer group than they do with adults. In the East, it ain't like that. In the East, people spend significantly more time with adults, because children are supposed to spend time with adults so they can learn how to be adults. But in this society, the children spend time with other children. 15-year-olds spend most of their time with other 15-year-olds. And what they do, they learn from the other 15-year-olds. Foolishness. You're supposed to spend more time with your father and your uncles and learn things, go to work with him, and you grow up. See, back then he was grown up. By the time he was 16, they said, okay, look, let him run a military campaign. And all that led up to him being a great man.
The scriptures speak about Josiah, and he was on the throne at about, I think he was less than 16. But he he was likened unto King David in terms of how he conducted himself.
Yeah, because you can mature.
Yeah.
Basically, in this society, they stunt your maturity. They stunt the maturity of your mind. They want to keep you like a child for longer and longer and longer and longer, man. These youths coming up now are even more childish than we were, man.
That breeds chaos.
Chaos, because they never learn how to be focused. A man's supposed to learn how to be focused, diligent. They never learn that because, you know, they just left to their own devices. Even in uni, a lot of these uni students are just big kids. Okay, hold on.
Since he not only saved his father's life, but his this timely.
Quick precept for you. Of course. Sorry, this is Sirach 6:33. Salakia.
What do you want some up?
No. It's Satan, man. I went to the scripture and it's Salakia, bro. Give me 1 second. That's Satan.
And brother's gonna get the precept. We're living in a time where, you know, like, that's why we get so bugged out, man. These women as well, they're not trained up. When a young, in the ancient world, a young woman that was 15, 16, they had a lot of experience in minding children, cooking, cleaning. Now these girls, they ain't got no experience in doing anything but sitting in a classroom in school. You know? Hey.
Sirach 8 and 9. Miss not the discourse of the elders, for they also learned of their fathers, and of them thou shalt learn understanding, and to give answer as need requireth.
Yeah, go on, break it down, huh?
Yeah, as the brother was saying about as a young man, you're meant to really be coming up underneath the people that are over you, the elder men, because you turn into an adult as of the age of 12. And that's naturally what you should do, because if you're around people the same age as you, the best example to show you in the scriptures is Solomon's son Rehoboam. When he got the elders told him what to do, which was sound judgment. But he went to his friends and they told him to do the opposite, and he did the opposite. He lived out the prophecy of the kingdom being rent from him and him not being able to subjugate the other tribes that were taken away. Okay, now that's a good example, because as a young man, how else are you gonna learn? If you have an older, you have your father, you have an uncle, you have an elder cousin or a former relative, they're gonna show you about the birds and the bees, so to speak. They're gonna say, yeah, this is what you do with a girl. This is how you do this. Go and work in this field or do this. But they'll basically fill you in on the right methods of basically to build you up from being a man adolescent, through adolescence to become a man of age.
You're supposed to be under tutors. Yeah, because you know, obviously you're gonna spend time with other people your age, but in the West it's ridiculous. And there's articles out there online on that in the West. And you know this to be true. In the West, even when you growing up, you hardly spend time with old. Now they gotta think on the streets, they gotta think of olders.
Yeah.
But you know, that's just the street niggas. But really, in a way, that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to spend time with elders. Like when you spend time with older people, you start thinking like an older person. You spend time with people in a younger mind frame. You start thinking and talking shit like someone in an older mind frame. So, you know, that's that.
Well, I just got one point I wanted to say, because actually, when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my uncle, and he was relatively young. He don't know nothing really, but he told me certain things because about basically dealing with, you could say about the street perspective, or just being a man around other in my age group. So I'm telling him about, you know, we have problems with this people from over here and this, that, and other in my life. And he basically just summed it, found it like, oh, that ain't nothing to worry about. You know, when you get older, those things don't matter. So, and he told me certain little things about, you know, to understand when you're in key situations, mainly confrontational situations. So when I got into those situations, I basically bewildered the people of my age group because I came from an older mindset. So I was always able to maneuver through those situations because I had I'm not saying it like I'm some great master teacher, but I'm saying that wisdom that was given to me
Most likely,
allowed
pretty much set up
Yeah,
most of the
yeah.
brothers that come into this thing. You would have had like a
Mentor.
mentor.
Yeah.
I had a mentor.
Yeah.
You know, that filters through to everybody.
Yeah. So when I was staying,
We still
give
got
you
that.
certain
Yeah,
abilities.
exactly.
But then when we're on the level now where you listen to the elders, but we can hang around each other because we know a bit more.
Yeah.
But when you're like 13, 14, you know, young man, you can't be listening to other 13. Remember, you've ever been on the bus and heard of it, listen to their conversations, man?
You know,
God
it's
damn.
funny because on the way here, that's the spirit. Because on the way here, yesterday when I came from work, I had to put my headphones on because I heard these little girls talking nonsense. I said, yo, I gotta listen. But when I was coming down today, this girl was talking about university and doing this and that. I'm thinking, you don't know how young you are, man. You're speaking about how she really thinks she's a full-blown woman. But you're just in university, you're probably a freshman or something. You don't really know what's going on. But they'll be speaking like they got great levels of wisdom. But that's because they're around the people that they are around, and to them, they've basically stepped into that rite of passage to be becoming a woman.
That's why the scripture says
adult.
folly is setting great
Great
dignity. Because a lot of these people in this world, they actually have like nothing. Like what we're getting into is you growing up as an individual and they haven't done that.
Yeah.
But you speak to them and you'll think that they'll come across like they got all the wisdom in the world.
That's right.
Hey, even these cartoons now are fluff. Them old cartoons we used to watch, and I'm not talking about no Dan Ren and Skimpy, I'm talking about
But they had
Spider-Man.
They had spiritual
Excellent.
They
connotations
had,
in
you
them.
know, they had deep things that
Yeah,
were happening
yeah,
there
yeah.
too. Now it's just, I'm watching it, the storyline's just totally, it ain't on no level, man. So Esau's fucked up manhood, man.
Dragon Ball Z, anime, Gundam Wing.
All that false flags going on in there and all that. So Esau's messed up everything, man. That's why a 21-year-old today is a big kid. He's a big kid playing 360 all day. Every spare moment he has, he's not really developing his mind. He's not developing himself on any level. He just wants to play. They go to class, and after they finish class, they want to play. A grown man ain't just go and play all the time, man. You can't tell me you're in uni, and I've been to uni, I know what it's all about. You go to the lecture, if you go, you got your hand out, you skeets, niggas hardly go to the library. It ain't about that, it's about playing. After you're done, you go smoke weed and drink and try and fuck some women. It's a big game, man.
I was going to say this. I was with the captain at one point, and he was showing me some old cartoons that they had back in the day, like the Black Panther.
Yeah, that was deep.
And I was watching, I was like, that ain't no cartoon for kids, because they're getting into the geopolitical situations
Geopolitics.
that was happening at the time.
But I don't want to take away from unless you
yeah.
got something else you want to bring up.
Spirit.
Feel free.
Keep
Keep going. But that just showed Alexander the Great, the so-called great. He's 16 years old. He had to have been trained up among men at that time in order for them to give him the responsibility of going on a military campaign, man.
I've got one precept
Yeah,
before you
of
move
course.
on from that. This is Ecclesiastes 11:9. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things the Most High will bring thee into judgment. Therefore remove sorrow from thy heart, and pour away evil from thy flesh. For childhood and youth are vanity. And that segue into what the prophet said. Philip, the Macedonian, did the right thing with his son.
Yeah, man. Young men are going to be young men.
Yeah.
They're going to be playful,
Yeah.
but you still have to focus them in.
Cultivate them, yeah.
You have to cultivate them. Now, they just totally giving onto that nature. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to have fun, but you put man to do something, you know what I'm saying? You don't put man to do nothing, man. They're just with a bunch of niggas on the streets running around talking shit. They don't want to air when the elders don't want to speak.
If not that, they got a headset on playing Xbox, talking shit.
Or they listening to them rap niggas.
It says, this is his ascension to hegemony of Greece When all the plans of the invasion of Persia were complete, and a portion of his troops was already.
No, I ain't no high priest. Oh, the ephod, yeah? Where you from, brother? Are you a preacher?
That's why I was saying. But next time when I see you one away, we can.
All right, okay.
Global wickedness.
I was about to get him. Go on.
When all plans of invasion were complete, a portion of his troops was already across the Hellespont. Philip was assassinated. Having secured his succession, Alexander proceeded to Corinth, where he was confirmed in his father's position of leader of Hellas against Darius. It says the king of the Media Persia. It says before he could cross into Asia, he had to secure the northern frontiers against possible raids of barbarian tribes, invaded Thrace, and with his army overthrew the Triballi.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Spartacus was from Thrace.
Yeah.
He was from Thrace.
Free shot.
Which he had to be a Jake.
It says, and they crossed the Danube and inflicted a defeat of Geats. It says, during his absence in these but slightly known regions, the rumors spread that he had been killed, and the Thebes began a movement to throw off the Macedonian yoke. It says, on his return to Greece, he wreaked terrible vengeance on Thebes, not only as a promoter of this revolt furthermore, but also as the most powerful of the Greek states. Right, this is campaigns in Asia Minor. Having thus secured his rear, Alexander collected his army at Pella to cross.
Which that shows he had military understanding. You always got to protect your back. You know what I'm saying? But that's where you're going to be weakest. If you let an army get behind you, you get outflanked from behind, that's your ass. You know, because you got no room to retreat, no room to maneuver. Go on, man.
It says, to cross the Hellespont, that he might exact vengeance of Greece and Persia for his indignity suffered at the hands of Xerxes, who by his strength through his riches had stirred up all the realm of Grecia.
Yeah, because the Persians, that's why the Persians, man, they had money, man. And they even showed you that in 300, man. Because they were getting hella tribute, man. So they had money to pay off people to fight for them.
Well, if you're gonna have a 1 million man army, you're gonna pay that 1 million
You gotta
man
pay
army.
them.
And that's a quote from Daniel, the 11th chapter, on the 2nd verse. And it says, and steeped as he was in his romance of this Iliad, Alexander, when he came to the site of Troy, honored Achilles, who he claimed as his ancestor, right, with games and sacrifices. This may have been the outflow of his romantic nature, but there was also wise policy in it. So the Greeks were more readily reconciled to the loss of their freedom when it was yielded up to one who revived in his own person the heroes of the Iliad. So it may have been noted how exactly the point of Alexandria's invasion indicated in Daniel's prophecy of Daniel, the 8th chapter and the 5th verse. From Troy he advanced southwards and encountered the Persian forces at Granicus. While in the conflict, Alexander exhibited all the reckless bravery of a heroic hero. He at the same time showed the skill of a consummate general. So the Persian army was dispersed with great slaughter.
Yeah, so he consolidated his people underneath him, or the peoples of Greece underneath him, and then he went to war against the Persians. And he prevailed. Why? Ultimately because it was prophecy. The Lord was with him to do that. Okay? And it tells you about that, get First Maccabees, the 1st chapter.
Maccabees, what, 1 and 7?
Bro, the first chapter from the top.
First Maccabees 1 and 1. And it happened after the Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes.
Because when you read through the whole history, man, they went on a raw-ass campaign, which included Egypt. He goes into Egypt, all of that, man. They just went on a rampage. Them guys didn't see Greece for years, man. They were just out there conquering land after land after land, man. That's why the scriptures gonna say the whole earth was quiet before him, man.
And they went. Didn't they go also? They had
I think they went to Afghanistan.
I don't know about that, but I know they went up against the Carthaginians, and they conquered the Carthaginian Empire as well, isn't it?
They conquered everybody,
It was
man.
supposed to be like the next thing to the Greeks, but it wasn't the spirit that they was going to be the top dogs.
Well, the scripture says. We read the prophecies.
That he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
The first king of all Greece. Of all Greece. He consolidated all Greece underneath him. But
And made many wars and won many strongholds.
many wars and won many strongholds, which are recorded in the book of Maccabees, man. At one point, even the chariots came down and helped him, because it was set up for him to do what he did. It was all prophecy. It's all the Most High's plan. It's his story, man. And it's going to go according to the will of the Lord. Go on.
And slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations.
He took spoils of many nations. Go on.
Insomuch that the earth was quiet before him.
Ain't no one had nothing to say before Alexander, man. Go on.
Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
Yeah, he basically thought he was a god, man. As men do. When they do all these great things, they don't remain humble and say, yo, Yahba Hashem Yahushai. Nah, they got to puff themselves up like it was them that did it, instead of giving the glory to the Father, as you know, as the one that giveth. Because the Lord giveth and he taketh away. No man have power to retain the spirit, no matter who you are, no matter who you conquer, which he found that out. Well, read on.
And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him.
He had to pay up. Go on.
And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called
You want
his
this or you do something?
That's all. Yeah. Carry on reading it. Yeah.
wherefore he called his servants such as were honourable, and he had been brought up with him, and had been brought up with him, and his youth, and parted.
No, read that again.
Wherefore he called his servants such as were honourable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive.
Right, so they split the kingdom up between those four generals. I don't know if you want to get that. Or if there's anything else you wanted to add. But that goes in line with the prophecy we read earlier about the four wings. You know, it was all prophecy, man. They didn't know that. See, men on earth, man, to the most part, they do things every day. They don't understand the hand of the Lord in their life, man. They don't understand the hand of the Heavenly Fathers in their life, man. The Lord revealeth his secrets to the prophets, man. The average everyday person, he thinks he's doing it. This happened because of him. You know, I did this, I did that. Ultimately, you were just a actor in the Most High's movie, man. And when it's time for you to die in that movie, you're gonna die. When it's time for you to lose everything in that movie, you're gonna lose. Esau, your time is coming where you gonna go down, man. Simple. Yeah, whatever.
Doesn't really go into doesn't really go into the split after he had died. It goes into the history of these wars.
Okay, well, we can bring that if you want to bring that out.
So
Some of the history of the wars. Whoever's gonna bring out some of the wars.
I'll read the last battle of Isis. and I'll read as to conclude the last battle of Darius.
Okay, that's all.
So it says, Battle of Isis.
That's right. Might touch your kids.
Right, it says, Battle of Isis and march through Syria to Egypt. It says what he had done in symbol, he had to make a reality, right? And he had to settle the question of supremacy in Asia by the sword. He learned that Darius had collected an immense army and was coming to meet him. Although a Persian host was estimated as 500,000 men, Alexander hastened to encounter it. It says rapidity of motion as a symbolized in the dark, right, by the he-goat that he came from the west and touched not the ground, which the brother had touched on, talked about the swiftness of their army, of their takeover. And it says was Alexander's great tactics. It says the two armies met in the relatively narrow plains of Isis, and where the Persians lost, right, to a great extent, and the advantage of their numbers, that they were defeated with a tremendous slaughter.
Hey, man. Yeah, man. So basically, like the brother said, it was a quick takeover, man. And that's why now you're gonna